We'll go ahead and use a tornado that occurred in southwest New Jersey. This was after the results of Hurricane Ida. And what we're going to do is first initially draw the polyline based on the points that you see here, but then also we're going to fine-tune it with a host of aerial imagery that's been available. And I'll show you that some of the aerial imagery is actually Sentinel-2 polar satellite imagery, and I loaded the NDVI color map and also the gray sky. Oops, right here, let's update that. These two I've added here as well, so this will show up in the overlays. This is the layers that we have. There's the Sentinel, and we'll go ahead and add the gray sky, which actually is going to show up below the Sentinel imagery. But we'll keep those off for now because let's go ahead and add this polyline. I got this damage survey here, and we have a host of points, and I see that initially we have a point, and in fact I should bring that up using the Edit Identify Toolkit here. And you notice that the surveyors are kind. They put in the comments a track start for the first point that they found. And then also on the last one, they also have a track end comment here. So that's awesome. That makes it really easy for me. I don't have to ask them or anything like that. They put those comments in there, and all I have to do now is just draw the line. So I'll go ahead and use the Add tool here. There's the polyline. And right there, you see my cursor readout says, click to start drawing. So here I go. I just did. And I'll add a couple intervening points along the way. And then, oh my, let's go ahead and double click to complete that. So there is the information that I have to fill out for this polyline. So let's go ahead. I'll start off with the event ID. I think everybody should have an event ID, not just for the tornadoes, but also for the points. And you can do that globally, so you don't have to do it for every single point individually. But I'm going to just pick a date. So YYYY, day. All right. Now, initially, I'm just going to put QC'd. But before that, let's go ahead and put a town name. So I'm going to put in Mullica Hill. Something like that. There's the town, Mullica Hill. The tornado looks like it went right through there. Now, initially, I'm just putting QC'd in there because all these points are QC'd, and I want to be able to see all of them. So I'm going to make everything QC'd, but believe me, in practice, I wouldn't do this until I was satisfied with the analysis. So just for the demo purposes, we do that. And now we'll go ahead and put the date. I put September 2021. Let's put September 1. And the time I'm going to say, and by the way, this is UTC, so I'm going to put in 2035 as the start time. The end date, again, the same day it did end, and not 2022. Oh, let's hit backspace and put in 2021. And this tornado lasted about 20 minutes, so we'll put in 2055 UTC. Okay, tap out of that box, and now I am going to select an EF rating. And I see there are some points in here that are rated EF3. They're in that burnt orange color, so I put that in as EF3. And I believe the wind speed to be 150, but if I'm wrong, I can always go down and check these points individually. And then if I'm wrong, I can always update those wind speeds. Well, the length has been calculated for me automatically, but not the width. So I'm just going to pick, 500 yards just initially. And we can always update that later using the ruler tool if we need to. I think I heard there were 10 injuries in this and no fatalities, so we update those. And I'm not sure of the property damage, so I'll leave that alone. No comments and no file needed or anything like that, although I could. Maybe I could put in a PDF or something about this tornado. But we'll leave this empty for now. And I'm going to go ahead and submit. So there we go. We confirm. Polyline added. No PII. And so there we have it. It's colored burnt orange to represent the EF3 rating. Okay, next we need to make an adjustment here. I noticed that, the points don't follow an exactly straight line. And there may be some interesting information in the gaps. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is bring up the NDVI color map from the Sentinel imagery. And if I turn off the damage line here, you can probably see that track right there. You see that kind of a scar that goes up and down, northeast to southwest, right through the screen. So it looks like, for part of this track at least, the damage to vegetation and the impacts to neighborhoods in here was strong enough to leave this scar, but it doesn't include everywhere. You notice down here there's no scar or anything like that. That's because the NDVI really gets impacted. It shows a change when tornadoes get strong enough, and usually that's greater than EF1. So some portions of this track are just a little bit too weak. And for those areas, we may just have to take it on faith or look at the higher res imagery, which we do have. But for now, let's just make a global adjustment using this NDVI. And I noticed up here, I see kind of a suspicious looking track right up there. So I might make an adjustment there. What am I going to do? Well, I'll go ahead and click on this line, bring up the readout here in the edit identify and click on that. And then down here at the bottom, I see there's a move option. I want to move this line. Actually, it does more than that. I can make edits to it. So I click on that, and immediately I come up with vertices, the ones that I made before. There are a few of them along the line, and I am going to adjust something. So let me zoom in a little bit. Already I see, well, maybe I'm not too far off here, but maybe there's a slight rightward adjustment here. So go ahead and adjust that. Down here, it looks all right. I think I'm pretty much clear on that. I can always turn on and off the track. I see that. I think I'm pretty close to it there. Farther southwest, the tornado is too weak to show any disturbance in the NDVI. But maybe up to the north, there's a little bit of a difference. Yeah, so I'm beginning to see that there's a slight left deviation. You notice there's a semblance of a track here. And of course, I got a point up there, so that helps me kind of gravitate or anchor my analysis and my judgment based on that point. So it looks like it may be a line up here. I see an EF1 image point here, so I'm going to go and make an adjustment that way. And then beyond that, there really isn't anything. I don't see any impacts or any disturbance here, so I'll keep the endpoint anchored where it is, at least at this point. So with that in mind, I'm going to double click and save the edits here. Yep, no PII, and polyline is updated. I think we've done all we can about concerning the NDVI imagery. We basically use the NDVI to follow the damage center line as well as the NDVI will allow. But now we're going to go ahead and go to higher resolution imagery and do some fine adjustments. And since we couldn't see any confluence or sign of confluence in the damage patterns with NDVI, the high resolution imagery here with gray skies will fix that problem. And so I'm going to focus on a couple places here. Why don't we go ahead and select the polyline, get it into edit mode. We'll click on the attribute there in the edit identify and select move. And we see all the vertices pop up. And I got a couple places in mind we'll take a look at here. One of them is right there with those EF3 points. We're going down. Already I can see that we're not following this. We're not following even the damage center line here. So we got to shift this a little bit farther west. And then we'll see if it fits well, if we should use the confluence of any damage to fine-tune it a little bit more. Now you can see that there's some rather intense damage here. You can see that damage is being blown off to the north from this house. We zoom in even more, and we'll take a look at the tree fall pattern. Certainly it looks like we need to move this up a little bit further, but how far? Okay, so let's take a look at the tree fall here to the north, and you can see there's a tree fall to the southwest. It looks like there's a variety of trees that are falling to the southwest here. So these trees fell before the tornado arrived, and that's typical of very strong tornadoes, with a typical motion. And the same thing is true here. So a lot of these just fell to the southwest. So no real well-defined confluence zone here. I do see trees that fell to the east here. So these could have waited until after the tornado passed by and then fall. And they could have been on the far left side where you do tend to get that. You get the weaker winds ahead of the tornado, and then finally the stronger winds behind it. So it could be a confluence line here. But that's not in the region. In this case here, we have this sweeping tree fall pattern to the west and the southwest, and then the east here. With that occurring with strong tornadoes, that confluence line is typically too far left. And so we want to go ahead and maybe move this center line, but not all the way to the confluence line, just to the damage center line, which would be maybe roughly there. Next, we'll move off to the northeast. So stand by. We'll zoom in about. We got another spot of interest up here. And in this region here, it's going to be also a challenge, but notice that we have an unroofed house here. We have significant tree damage in multiple directions. A lot to the southwest, to the west. Okay, and then some that fell to the northeast. So there's a crisscross pattern. And then we have this unroofed house, and there's some debris that fell to the west. It may be that over here the vortex center has moved closer to this house. But we also have to be mindful that we have debris that's blowing off to the north and northwest here. So we have to see if that is something we can use. Typically, though, small debris tends to blow around in circles and take trajectories that don't lend themselves to a confluence pattern very well. Here we have tree fall to the southwest again. So the tornado is very strong. I think in this place here, we may bring this back a little bit closer to where these trees are, falling to the west here a little bit. So I'll bring this back a bit. Maybe something like right there, so close to our original guess with the NDVI, which kind of makes sense. We're running right down the most intense damage that started showing up in the NDVI product. So we go up here, we have some houses, and we zoom in. And here we have trees that are falling to the north, a couple to the west there. We look off to the west and we see tree fall to the northeast right there. A little bit more classic confluence zone coming in. So I think we're pretty close to where we want to be, at least at this place here. There's a little bit more agreement with the damage intensity. However, further to the north, you can see there's tree fall to the north here and to the east. So we may bring the center line. It may have wobbled a little bit. May have brought the center line off to the west up in this region. So let's see if we can pull that off. And okay, so we got that, and we'll shift that a little bit to the west, something like that right there. And that might help a little bit. And if we zoom in here, you can see the tree fall pattern to the north, and then we have northeast. So I'll make a slight adjustment, and maybe that should work out pretty well right there. So I'll leave it there, and for now we'll just double click and confirm that we have no PII, and we've updated the polyline.